Hey guys, welcome back to the WatchGauge YouTube channel. My name is John Keel from WatchGauge.com, and this is
Gary Gerdvanis from IW Magazine.
my good buddy Gary. He has come out to WatchGauge headquarters here today to do a special edition of Weekend Watches. It's actually going to be a two-part series, part one and part two, because this week in Switzerland is the biggest trade show in the world for the wristwatch industry.
Well, it'll be a multi-part series by the time we're all done. I mean, there's over 60 brands showing at the Watches and Wonders alone. Our editor, Mike Thompson, as well as some freelance writers are all there right now. Actually, they're probably getting ready to head home, get out before they let the public in on Saturday and Sunday, get while the getting's good. But just an amazing array of watches to show you over the next several weeks.
Yeah, so what I should say is we're recording two parts today. And then we'll follow up next week with the with what else is coming in. So, what's going on at Watches and Wonders? What are we talking about today? Because I'm learning this as you guys are today.
Well, I mean, everyone was excited about Rolex, and they've really divided the world. Yeah. They came out with a puzzle enamel dial that is completely unlike anything Rolex did. So half the people love it, half of it hate it, which apparently is perfect for social media. It causes attention. Yeah. And of course, Patek Philippe has come out with some of their amazing new watches. So we'll get to those as well. But, you know, at IW, I've always from the very beginning liked to cover the more exotic, esoteric, and not necessarily just the collector high-end brands. So we'll show you newness from the boutique brands like Max Booster and Friends, like Ohrwerk, some of the less expensive models like Oris and Doxa, because these deserve our attention as much as the crowns and the crosses and the other brands that we all know.
I completely agree. Okay, so I see we're looking at Zenith here.
Yes, Zenith, of course, is showing at Watches and Wonders as well, and they focused on their Pilot collection. This is a reboot. They've got a big date chronograph, and they also have a three-hand simple Pilot's watch as well. There's an interesting tidbit that I just learned that even after 33 years, I didn't realize that ostensibly Zenith is the only watch brand that's allowed to use the word Pilot as it stands alone on its dial of any watch.
How is that possible, do you think?
I don't know, because we're going to be showing another watch that shows Pro Pilot on it, but
right.
I guess...
Or Big Pilot, or, you know, there's
or
others.
Big Pilot, but apparently standing alone, Zenith is the only one. And in this case, the three-hand has the beautiful texture on it, and you'll see that instead of the 6 numeral, they put that flat line that they say that intimates a horizon line as opposed to...
Everything's got to be romanced, right?
Everything's
romanced.
But
I do like it. I do like the watch a lot.
And I do like their chronograph, the Big Date chronograph. It's also a flyback, and we were talking about this earlier. Yeah. The best thing about a flyback, we're not using it for changing course so that you know, it's a quicker transition, so you don't have to stop, and reset, obviously. I like it for the fact that people who don't know the sequence won't break their watch when they start the chronograph and then hit the reset button before they stop it.
Right.
It's a good safety feature, and you know, the watches themselves, you know, they're...
So this watch reminds me of, if you remember the old Zenith El Primero that used to have that colorful ring around it. Did they call it the rainbow?
Yes.
They did. I mean, we're going back to the early 90s, if not...
Yes.
I'm sorry, late 90s, I would think. Yeah, but it almost is reminiscent of that. This here is a perfect example, I think, of what we spoke about just a few moments ago with Doxa. To me, those two registers seem a little close into the center of the dial.
Yeah, it's crowded.
Aesthetically, for me, I would prefer to see them just separated a little bit, and that's just a pet peeve of mine. I mean, you know, but it's a handsome-looking watch.
And what happened was that when a lot of these movements were first designed, the watches were smaller, 36, 37 millimeters, and all of a sudden it doesn't look so crowded around the cannon pinion.
Correct.
Yeah. And let's see, the retail prices here we're looking at for the automatic three-hand is $9,600, and the Big Date Flyback $13,500 in ceramic.
Those are in ceramic, yeah. And then the steel is $7,500, and the
$11,500.
Steel Flyback is $11,500. I think that's very reasonable. I would assume that the Flyback utilizes the El Primero movement.
I do not believe it does.
Oh.
I will double check. We can cut this out, but we're moving on. I don't think this one has the 36,000 BPH.
Hold on.
There's the rainbow you were referring to from 97 right there.
In addition to steels. It says
See,
so.
it's got the rainbow on the sundial.
I see that.
That's what you were picking
Yeah.
up. Oh,
Powered by
Primero,
the new
high
El
frequency.
Primero.
Yeah, you were right.
Very nice. Love it. I think it's a great price for that movement as well.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a great watch. It's got history. I mean, Rolex used that movement for years before they developed their own.
Yeah. Sounds good.
More chronographs from World of Watches.
Right on.
Tag Technique d'Avant-Garde, Heuer, Jack Heuer.
Yeah.
This is a beautifully balanced style, but the real killer effect on this is the crystal that instead of having a tachymeter scale around the bezel, this crystal actually sweeps over an internal tachymetric scale. You can see here, this is the normal rehaut area, and then there's a ridge, and then that crystal is actually over the outside of the entire rehaut. I cannot wait to hold this watch in my hands in person.
Right.
You can have it as a Carrera chronograph, and it's also a 39 millimeter. They're calling this version the glass box.
Okay.
Okay, and it's not that expensive, relatively speaking, without the tourbillon, which we're looking at here. It's $6,450. The tourbillon that we're looking at here, it's a tourbillon and a chronograph with that same glass box effect, and it's a little bit bigger at 42 millimeters in steel. But amazing, when you've covered the watch industry for decades, tourbillons used to be six-figure watches. This chronograph tourbillon from Tag Heuer is $21,000.
That's ridiculous. I mean, for years and years and years and years, anytime anybody introduces tourbillon, it's $100,000 plus. Right away, just the word tourbillon.
I was shocked when I saw this pricing.
I remember reminiscing back to my Chronoswiss days when we did the Chronoswiss regulator tourbillon. That one came in at about $50,000, and everybody said, "How can they do it at $50,000?" And now here we are with Tag Heuer having one in the $20,000 range with a chronograph.
And Swiss made.
And Swiss made. Wow. And I love the coloring. Aesthetically, to me, that's beautiful. But like you said, I cannot wait to see what that crystal with that tachometer scale under the crystal but above the dial looks like in person.
The depth that it gives.
Right.
It lets you into the watch. It gives a dished out design, which we've seen from other watches,
Sure.
but typically they place a flat or domed bezel around it, whether
Right.
it's ceramic or whatever. This is
This
really...
is almost a bezel-less watch.
Yeah, it is a bezel-less watch. The
And
sapphire crystal, it has a bezel, but it's protected by the sapphire.
Correct. I can't wait to see it in person as well. See what that thing looks like.
Superb at $6,450.
All right. I like this one from Tag Heuer a lot.
All right, so playing with materials at Watches and Wonders, ceramic is nothing new. Hublot, famous for their Big Bang, created under the control, if you will, or guidance of Jean-Claude Biver. They expanded into the Square Bang. This is uses their own in-house Unico chronograph movement. It's a column wheel controlled with an extended power reserve of 72 hours. Here you see it in black and white ceramic. It's also a flyback chronograph, which we discussed before.
Right.
The values of a flyback are immense. You won't break it, and if you need to time lapse or whatever, it's a very quick turnaround. They're fairly expensive. They're in-house movement and they're ceramics. You're talking $27 for the white, $26.2 for the black.
Okay.
The fun one here, though, I think, is the sapphire. One of the first brands to play with sapphire
As a case.
as a case,
Case material.
so that you can see the entire inner workings, the screws, the movements, and everything else.
Interesting.
And here's a piece of trivia. The first person to ever make a sapphire crystal case was so far ahead of his time that he doesn't get full credit for it today was Krieger Watches.
Was that right? Ira.
Ira Krieger did it
Wow.
in the 90s, and he was so far ahead of his time.
I remember that. That watch, if I'm not mistaken, was called the Gigantic.
The Gigantum. Very good. You've been around,
wow,
son.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, I remember that. Wow, and I'd long forgotten that.
Well, and the thing is, we see more people playing with it. Bell & Ross does it, other brands, and it's really cool to see the colors being integrated too.
Yeah.
And it's been perfected. But again, you see people ahead of their time. Hublot was ahead of their time with the rubber strap on a luxury watch.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Who would have ever thought, until Patek did it, it was almost like Really? You're putting rubber? But then
On
Paddock
a-
did it, and then all of a sudden everyone
and,
could put
and again, showing my age and showing, well, a lot of things I don't want to show. I remember way back in the day, I sold the 1910 Hublot, which was the chronograph on the rubber strap, well before the Big Bang. And those things, I couldn't get enough of them. Every time they came in, they had one with a blue dial that if I got in 10, I'd sell 10 in like 10 minutes.
I can still smell the vanilla.
Yeah.
On that.
Those
that strap.
straps were rubber, natural rubber, which have that strong scent of vanilla. And back then you couldn't cut the strap or size
No,
it.
it had steel. It had
So-
steel cables and a fixed end piece.
As a Hublot retailer at the time, we had a big strap changing kit with dozens of every size, width as well as length, and it would make the whole watchmaker's room smell like vanilla. It was so many straps in there. Yeah, I have to be very honest. I'm not a square watch guy per se, personally, and I didn't really love the white and the black. I think the crystal I like. I don't know that I'd wear it.
It gives a completely different effect. Well, you can
It's
see
just
that
neat.
I'm not dead set against square watches.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a different, it's an adjunct to the Big Bang, and it
Correct.
makes sense. You know, this is our DNA, to use the overused term,
Yep,
and
yep.
look, with their own movement inside. Oh, by the way, the sapphire is a bit more expensive. I don't know if I mentioned it was $95,000 for the sapphire crystal.
That's a jump.
It's a big jump, triple the price,
All righty.
or more.
Well, way to go, Hublot.
There you go.